Hello all, how are you doing guys? Welcome to this new webinar about RhinoGold 5. Thank you all for registering. As always, we're going to wait 2-3 more minutes until it's 6 o'clock and then we will start the webinar. Thank you for waiting. Hello everybody, welcome to this 6th webinar about RhinoGold 5. This is Xavier Rofes, Sales and Marketing Manager of RhinoGold. It's always a pleasure to be here with all of you. Before starting with this webinar itself, let me show you the next events we are attending. In April, we will be in London presenting RhinoGold 5 at the Goldsmith Center together with our reseller Simple Rhino. It's going to be a 3-hour presentation where we will walk through the news of RhinoGold 5. You are more than welcome to join us. It is free of charge. Also, this April is full of trainings, but let me focus in these 3. The advanced training we are giving here in Barcelona next week, and I'm telling you, Barcelona is already summer, so it's kind of crazy. Be welcome. In Toronto, Schindler Technologies is offering this free hands-on session to teach the basics of RhinoGold 5. It's pretty interesting. And in Brazil, Solo South 3D is offering a 4 days full training of RhinoGold. It's perfect to become proficient in RhinoGold. Of course, if you are in the area and you want to join us, please, you still have seats available. Just contact us immediately and we will reserve your seat. Pedro, are you here? How are you doing?
Yes, I am. Yes, always a pleasure to present another webinar, and Basel was also really good trade show. Also, always people from all around the world. So really motivated to start this new webinar.
Yeah, it was Basel was good. Kind of long, but it was good. It was good.
True.
Anyway, let's start. As always, we are TDM Solutions, a company based in Barcelona, in Spain. We are the developers of Rhino plugins, and RhinoGold is our main product. We are today everywhere in this world with more than 70 resellers. For those who are new in this webinar, we are showing today RhinoGold, the most advanced CAD for jewelry. As you all know, CAD is not anymore the technology of tomorrow. It's actually the technology of today. The question is how we are going to use this technology. And that's why we are offering this series of webinars to show you how to combine 3D tools and create jewelry in the easiest way. And this is what we are going to design today, a ring with a pearl on top. We believe it's quite easy. I would say it's level 1. What do you think, Pedro?
Yes, I would say it's exercise good for beginners, because we will see some basic tools. I believe everybody can follow this webinar easily. Let's see.
I think so. I think so. Also, we decide to have a level 1 webinar because next week is going to be a tough one. So this week we wanted to show you something easy. Yeah. So the main tools Pedro will show you today are the dynamic profile, dynamic polar array, the Pearl Studio, the Ring Wizard, Gem Studio, and the Bezel Studio. It's just that, it's just that. Sorry. And of course, at the end, we will make the photorealistic image to post in your online catalog or magazines or anywhere you want. Today, Enrique couldn't be with us. He was quite busy developing. But as always, if you have any question, please feel free to write on the chat, and myself, I will do my best to help you with all your questions. Pedro, it's your time.
Good. Thank you, Xavi, and once again, thanks to all the attendees for registering this webinar. Once again, let's start modeling this flower using RhinoGold. So let's open RhinoGold interface. As you can see now, the first step I'm going to use under the Gems tab, I'm going to use the Pearl Studio. So as you can see, I click on Pearl Studio icon, and I just need to define my pearl. So as you can see in this side panel, I need to define the diameter. In this case, I'm going to use 8 millimeters diameter. And then we can define the wire and the calotte. So I would change to wireframe display modes just to show you what is the wire. As you can see, this is where we will place the pearl. So I can define the diameter, in this case 0.8 millimeters is good, and of course the length. As you can see, I can define it bigger or smaller. In this case, I will define in the middle of the calotte, but as you know, we can change it. In this case, it's just to be easiest to make the Boolean operation. After this, I'm going back to rendered display mode, and I just need to define in here, as you can see, the angle. I will define 90 degrees, and of course the thickness. As you can see, we can change the thickness as well. In this case, I'm going to use 0.7 millimeters thickness, and okay. Now we have the the pearl added to the document. And now the next step to define the flower, I'm going to the top view, and in here I can change the display mode again. And in the top view, I'm going to define a curve. So let's go to the drawing tab, and in here I'm going to use the Smart Curve tool. So when I click on Smart Curve tool, I just need to define my points to define the curve. But as you can see in the command line, we have several options. So I'm going to start by activating the vertical symmetry. As you can see, I just click on symmetry and then vertical, and as you can see, now it's activated. So now I just need to define the points. As you can see, first point I define both sides of the curve, and now easily I can define my curve. In this case, I will leave more or less 3 centimeters for the diameter of the flower. So in this case, 1.5 centimeter is good. So after the second point, I just press enter, and as you can see, now I have my curve here in the top view. So let's go back to the perspective view, and now I can organize my curve to be easier to define. I'm going to move down my curve more or less at the same height as the base of the pearl, so I can do it in the right view, in the front view, maybe it's easier. I believe in here it's a good position. And back to the perspective, what I can do to adjust my curve, these points to be inside of the pearl, what I'm going to do is to select the curve, always left click in your mouse, and now I will use the edit point tool. So after selecting the curve, I define edit point tool, and I can select this point and this point just to make it a little bit, to adjust the curve. So as you can see, with the gimbal activated, I just drag this point, so I'm scaling in one direction a little bit inside. As you can see, very easy to define it. Just select both points, scale in this direction, and both are inside. And now I don't want to create a flat object. What I'm going to do is one part of the curve, so I'm going to choose this side, in this case this point. Let me select this point, and I'm going to move up 1 millimeter. So double click on the gimbal arrow, and I define 1 millimeter, enter, and I'm going to do exactly the same. As you can see, now the curve is not flat anymore, and I'm going to do the same with this point. Double click on the arrow, the direction I want to move, and I will define 0.5 millimeters. As you can see, now I have the curve exactly as I want, one side above the other, and I can press escape in the keyboard just to go out of the point addition mode. So now I can apply a profile along this curve. To do it, let's go to the jewelry tab, and in here I'm going to use the dynamic profile tool. So the idea is select dynamic profile tool, and then the first step is to select the curves where I want to apply the profile. So I click on the curve and I press enter to add this curve to the selection. So now I just need to define the profiles. In this case I have two profiles, and I will define the measures I want to use. So width, I'm going to use 1.5 millimeters, and height, I'm going to define 1.3 millimeters. Okay, looks good. Remember, by default, it's an open solid. Maybe I will hide the Perl just to see it better. This is open poly surface, so I need to define the cap type. In this case, I'm going to use the flat cap type, so I define both to start and to the end cap flat, and after this I just need to check to add the profile to the document. Okay, so now I can show again the Perl. Let me go back to render display mode, and now I'm going to duplicate this element. To do it under the transform tab, I'm going to use the dynamic polar array tool. So I select my object, then I click on dynamic polar array, and easily I can have the circular duplication. So I'm going to define the number of copies. In this case, I'm going to use 8 copies, as you can see. So 8 copies, okay, looks good. And after this, I just need to check in here to add the changes. As you can see, I have my first line, and I want to create another one above this one. So what I'm going to do is middle mouse button, select the curve. So as you can see, the curve is selected, and back to the top view. Let me change display mode to be easier to understand. I have the curve selected, and in the top view I'm going to use the scale 2D. So scale 2 directions, I click on this tool, and I'm going to define in the command line copy yes. So I want to create a copy from this original curve. So the start point, I'm going to use the 0, so this one, I click in here. Remember to activate the grid snap to make sure you are using the 0, and then I select the point to copy from and point to copy to. So in this case, I will copy to here, click again, and enter. So now I have another curve, and with this curve I'm going to move up once again, as you can see, and once again I'm going to make the dynamic profile. So under the jewelry tab, dynamic profile tool, and once again let's define the measures to this profile. So what I'm going to use now is to the 8 1.2, and with I'm going to define also 1.3. Okay, so looks good. Check here to add the changes, and as you know, it must be a closed solid to make the Boolean operations. I didn't close it, so just to make sure it's closed, I select the dynamic profile, middle mouse button, and edit. So edit, I can define the cap type as flat for both profiles. Checking here, and now I have my dynamic profile closed. So this is the idea. And the next step, let's go back to the transform tab, and I'm going to select this profile, and once again dynamic polar array tool, and I'm going to define the same amount of copies. So in this case, once again, 8 copies in the same direction, and checking here to add the changes to the document. Okay, looks good. I just want to rotate a little bit. We will see we need to make some operations, because at this moment we have these profiles inside of the Perl. So to start, what I'm going to do is to make a a Boolean operation to unite all these elements. So modeling tab, Boolean tool, I define Boolean Union, and the elements I will select all these profiles. So the first, the bottom ones, enter and preview. Okay, as you can see, I've done the Boolean successful. And now the same again. So Boolean operation, and I select the others. Okay, enter and preview. Done again. So now what I'm going to do is to rotate a little bit this profile. So I select all these profiles, and in the top view I want to rotate. So with the gumball I can disable the grid, the grid snap, and I can rotate a little bit. So the idea is to make it exactly in the middle of the previous one. Okay, so now I'm going to define the Boolean operation. So let me hide the Perl in order to understand what I need to remove. As you can see now, I have all the profiles in here, so I need to remove from here. So the best way to do it is by defining another cutting object. I will define a sphere. So to make sure I'm using the center, I can go to the top view, grid snap, and I'm sure I'm using the 0. So now the idea is just to make bigger than the Perl and smaller than the calotte. So somewhere around here I have my cutting object. So now I just need to make my Boolean operation to remove it from here. So dynamic Boolean tool, I define the Boolean difference in the middle. I select objects to keep in the first one, enter, and the second one, objects to remove the sphere. Enter again and preview the results. Okay, as you can see now, we have cut all these profiles. So the next step will be to add another sphere, another cutting object. So from the center, once again to the top view, it's easier. So grid snap from the center, and I click the second point once again in the same place. So we have another cutting object, and now once again Boolean, select dynamic Boolean and Boolean difference option, and now I select the objects to keep and then the objects to remove. Preview and done. Okay, let me hide the Perl. As you can see now I have only curves. I can select these curves and hide the curves in a new layer. I can call it curves and change object layer, and in here I can hide layer. So this is the idea. I can show again the Perl. I also remember we can change any material. As you can see, we have several materials. So now I'm going to bend my object. So as you can see, I have this is almost flat objects. So I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to use under the transform tab the dynamic bend tool. So dynamic bend, and I just need to define the inclination. So remember, if we want to use the symmetry for both axes, we need to press Shift. Okay, and easily we define the direction, and as you can see, I can bend my object in both axes when press Shift. I can bend a little bit more. Looks good. Okay, and checking here to add the changes. Okay, now I'm going to do exactly the same to the bottom object. So the idea is dynamic band. Remember to press Shift to make the symmetry for both axes and define the bend angle, easily just dragging this arrow, and as you can see, easily we define the angle we want. So in the end, remember to check in here to add the changes to the document, and as you can see, easily we have the model defined. Okay, so now I can adjust a little bit the position. Probably this I will move down a little bit. We still have some space, just a little bit more down. And of course this one I can do the same, a little bit more. Looks good. And probably not. Actually we can adjust as we need. And now the next step, I'm going to apply some gems in here. So to do it, I'm going to use the top view. So let's go back to the top view, and with the Gem Studio tool under the Gems tab, so Gem Studio tool, I will define a 2.5 millimeter gem. And now with the option to insert, I will define insert by defining a point. So I just need to define a point to apply my gem. I'm going to use the grid as reference. So I'm going to use this position, maybe a little bit up. Okay, and another one in here. So I will probably the other one I will use 2 millimeter gem, and once again with the pick point option, I'm going to define the position in here. Looks perfect. Okay. And now enter again, check here to add the changes to the document, and I just need to define the position correctly. So now in here probably I will move up a little bit, so use select and use the gumball to move up, remove the grid snap, and also I can rotate using the gumball, so I can easily adjust the position to follow more or less the shape of my object. And I will do the same in here. To make in this one, probably it's easier to make the rotation using the middle position. So I just place in the middle just to make sure I will rotate as I need. So let's go back to the perspective. I can rotate easily like this. Looks good. And now I have the rotation I want. Back to the top view, I can place where I want to use. So in here looks perfect. Okay, and we have our gems. Now I need to create the bezels. So to do it, I'm going to use the Bezel Studio tool under the Jewelry tab, Bezel Studio icon, and the first step I'm going to click on the gem I want to apply the bezel. So I select the first gem, press enter, and now I can define the bezel parameters easily. So make sure the bezel is touching with the other part in order to make one single object. And now I will adjust these parameters. So in here a little bit less. Remember, if you press shift you use the ortho. And we can adjust the bezel parameters by dragging these points. Of course we have the measures in the side panel. I can use less in here. I don't need so much, probably 1.6 it's enough. And also we can enable more control points just to add some different shape. I can adjust this a little bit inside. Also this I can move up a little bit, and this one I will adjust as well. So I can create a round shape. Okay, looks good. Can adjust a little bit more if needed, but I think it's more than enough. And I check in here to add the changes. So first bezel created successfully, and now the second one, I'm going to select the gem, and once again Bezel Studio tool, and I'm going to adjust the parameters. Once again, I don't need so much 8. I can reduce a little bit, maybe 1.3 it's enough. I adjust the 8, in this case the bottom thickness, and I can once again add more 2 parameters. Even the bottom one we can add easily. So I adjust the position, I can adjust the angle, also this one, and also this one. So easily I can adjust the shape. Remember to make sure the bezel is touching the other part to make the Boolean Union then. So looks good. I can check in here to add the bezel to the document. So the next step, I will make the copies from the gems and the bezels to around my object. So I select the bezel and the gems both, and I'm going back to the transform tab, and I'm going to use the dynamic polar array to create the copies. Of course, remember to use the same number of copies we used before, in this case 8, and you will see the gems will be exactly in the position we want. So I can check in here to add the changes to the document. Okay, looks good. Looks good. We can now group some of the gems just to be easier to define materials and so on. So I can select probably, let me use this option. I select the diamonds with 2.5 in the browser, and under the drawing tab I can group them, and the same with the diamonds with 2 millimeters diameter, and group easily. So as you can see, we have defined it all successfully. Now let me make the Boolean Union. So I just need to make a modeling tab, Boolean, and in this case I select this object and all the bezels. So probably it's easier if let me escape. If I press middle mouse button and select all the bezels in the document, and now this object with shift, so I just go to the selection box and all the objects are selected. So we just need to click on preview, and as you can see, easily we make the Boolean operation to make this part as a single object. Checking here, and we have successfully created this one. In the bottom one, we can apply other material. We can, after printing and casting, we can weld in the bottom this one. So I'm going to use for this, go to the RhinoGold materials, and I'm going to define white gold on this one. So let me look for white gold 18 carats. So easily I apply other material, and now the flower it's done. The flower it's ready, and let's take a look to two different examples. So I can use this model. I have created all the measures exactly as I want. So I can define a pendant easily, and just by defining the bail, the pendant bail. But also I will create a shank, and in the bottom I will define a ring. So I will use this model for two different pieces. So let's start with the pendant. So let me go to the jewelry tab, findings tool, and in here I can select. I have several options. I'm going to choose the bail number 2. So double click, and as you can see, the bail was added to the document. I just need to adjust the position. So select, and using the gumball I can easily adjust the position. Sorry. So now I'm going to also change this to white gold 18 carats. So the pendant is defined, and what I'm going to do is to define now a ring. So first I'm going to select all this and create a copy. So except the bail, I'm going to the transform tab, and using the copy tool I define the point to copy from. So I can pick any point, and point to copy to. So I create my copy in here, enter, and now I can also move this one to the same place. I'm sure it's in the same place because I have the grid snap enabled. And now I'm going to define my ring shank. So jewelry tab, and I'm going to use the ring wizard tool. So let me open the ring wizard tool. As you can see, we can easily define the ring region, and of course the ring size we want to use. In this case I can use ring size 20 from European measures. And let me use in the bottom, I will keep this profile, but I will use 4 millimeters in the bottom. And in the top, remember, double click outside to deselect the profile, and we can select this one and now adjust. So in the top, I will use just 2.5. So 2.5 millimeters width and 2 millimeters 8. Okay, we define the ring shank, as you can see. So I add the ring to the document, and easily I can move this up. In the front view we can check exactly the position. So easily, as you can see, I move this up, and I create one ring and one pendant. So this is the idea. As you can see now, the model is defined. Let me create the render. Probably I will also talk about some tricks to make a good render. It's good if we fillet the edges. So for instance, in the shank, as you can see, I have in here a sharp edge. So I can easily, under the modeling tab, fillet submenu, and variable fillet tool, I can define the angle. I will define 0.3 millimeters, enter, and I select the edge I want to fillet. So press enter, select the edge, and as you can see now I create a round corner, so the same in the other side. Fillet submenu, variable fillet tool. It will remember the last radius used, so just select the edge, press enter, and it will apply the fillet to the shank. So now probably it's also a good idea to make in here the necklace. So let me go to the top view, and in here I'm going to use the drawing tab. I can use the smart curve tool to define a curve. So symmetry, I will use again vertical. Remember, it will use the axis to make the symmetry, so probably I will use this axis, and then it's easier to move the curve exactly where we need. And once again in here, and finally in the right view, just to make sure it's in the middle, we can move up a little bit. So from here, let me go back to rendered display mode, and I will apply a rope. So jewelry tab, rope tool, I click, so I need to click on the curve I want to apply a rope, press enter, and now as you can see I have the rope. I just need to define the parameters. First I'm going to define the diameter for each one, for each thread with 1 millimeter, and then we have the number of threads and the number of turns. Let me use 15 turns. Let's take a look. The results looks perfect, and checking here to add the changes. Okay, looks very good. Now I'm going, before start applying the materials for rendering and start rendering, I'm going to adjust the position. It's always good to define the object's position to have a good render. So let me go to the front view. I will rotate in this direction. Remember, if you press shift you activate the ortho, and in here I'm going to do exactly the same. So I select the ring and I rotate, so easily I can define my position. If we need, we can zoom in to have more control. So zoom in, rotate, just using the grid as reference like this. And I'm going to move this one as well. So I select pendant, move up, just to make sure it's using the same line, so it's perfect. And back to the perspective, I can adjust the position. So I can move this here, rotate a little bit. Let me zoom in. So I'm going to move a little bit more. Maybe in here it's good. Okay, and now I zoom in a little bit more, and looks good to start make the render. So now I need to open the Render Studio. So Render tab and Render Studio icon. And as you can see now, we have a different color in background. It means that the environment it's applied by default. So now I just need to select my materials I want to use. So let's start with the rope. I select the rope. I go to velvet, and I can use, for instance, the black one. Then I want to use, so this group of gems and this group of gems, I'm going to use material. I'm going to the gems folder, and I'm going to use the emerald material. So double click, we apply the emeralds, and in here I'm going to use, so select first group of gems, and I'm going to use ruby. So ruby, emerald, and in the central one I'm going to use the spinel black. So double click, we apply the material, and now I can select the white gold, this one, and let's move up, and let's go to the metal polish folder. I'm going to use the white gold material, and to select all the yellow gold I can select like this one by one, but also another option I didn't talk about before. It's in RhinoGold material selector. We can just double click in here to select the material we are using, or we can select here, we can right click and say select. So now I'm selecting all the yellow gold, and let's use the yellow gold from the materials from Arion Render. And finally I'm going to add a ground. So I add a ground. As you can see, it's a surface in the bottom of my elements, and in the ground folder I'm going to use the lead. So I just apply double click or drag and drop. Remember, we can drag and drop, or we can double click with the object selected, and easily now I'm going to the render tab, and I can define the resolution. So as you can see, I have now this safe frame. After defining the resolution, it can change according to the resolution selected. In this case, I'm going to define HD resolution, and I can adjust the position. Looks good, and let's start render. So click on render to start rendering, and now Arion it's calculating the render. So as you can see, it starts with many noise. As you can see, the image we have much noise, but now with the number of passes, it will start cleaning the image and making the render with good quality. So let's wait a little bit to see the results. Okay, I would at the moment we have around 300 passes. I would say 500, 600 probably it's enough to have a good image quality. As you can see, we still have some noise in the ground, in the gems, but it's getting better. So
Very good, Pedro, very good.
thank you, Xavi. This is almost ready. I would just wait maybe a few more, a little bit more, but the render it's almost ready. At least the workflow we got a chance to see how to do it. So I believe it's a good result, this render.
Yes, it's looking good. It's looking good. We have received some questions. Not much because we told you that the model was easy, but there was a good question from Ewell. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but he's asking if it's possible to show how to edit the shank with the dynamic taper tool, one of the news of RhinoGold 5.
Oh, good question. Let me just open a sample file to show you. Actually, yes, of course we can. We can use the dynamic taper tool, as you can see in the transform tab. Probably using the ring wizard to create the shank, we won't need it because the ring wizard tool allows us to do it directly with this tool. As you can see easily, I can define a different angle in the top and in the bottom. But for other cases where we can create the shank without using the ring wizard tool, maybe it's a good point to show a little bit how to use it to taper the shank. So let's use this one as a sample. So when I'm going to use let's go to the transform tab. When I use in this case, dynamic taper tool, I need to select the object to taper. So in this case, the shank. And as you can see, RhinoGold will show me several axes. So a point in the end of each axis. So what I need to define in here is the point I want to taper. So in this case, let's imagine I want to taper in the bottom of the shank. I will choose this point. So I will choose this axis and especially in the bottom direction. So I just click in here, and as you can see, I have one arrow in this direction and 2 points. So these 2 points allow me to define where is the start and where is the end of the taper. But of course, the arrow, I need to define the correct direction. So I don't want to taper in this direction. I want to taper in the other. So I just need to define this option, swap axis. And as you can see easily, I can define the angle, in this case the taper distance I want to use. So easily I can make it bigger, smaller. So this is the idea. Of course, as I told before, if I've used the ring wizard, we can do it with the ring wizard tool. But other cases, it can be really useful to use this option. So just to show how it works.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you. I hope it will got answered. Let me know, Ewell, if there is any question in the chat. So within the next 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes, keep asking questions. Pedro, yes?
Yes. Well, just I saved the render. Save the render. As you can see, in the ground, probably if I leave a little bit more time, we have much better results. We still have some noise in the image, but easily we can create a model, a render, just to show the workflow, how it can be done.
It's looking good, Pedro. It's looking good. Don't worry. For the first time in our life, we did a webinar in time.
On time. That's true.
We were not delayed. Yeah. So just to finish the last 2 minutes, as always, that's the part I like the most when I talk about pricing. The ones that are new in CAD and like RhinoGold, you have to buy or RhinoGold for the price of $29.90 euros or US dollars. Today the rate between euros and dollars is it's kind of the same. So if you're in Europe, euros. If you are in the rest of the world, dollars. This is the price, $29.90. It's such a nice price. If you have Rhino Ceros 5, the price of RhinoGold is just $19.95. Of course, RhinoGold includes Rhino 5 license. So if you have it, just you need to pay 19.95 euros or US dollars. And at the end, if you are a previous RhinoGold user, you can upgrade to RhinoGold 5 for only $8.95. It's just an excellent price to get the latest cat for jewelry. How you can purchase? Very easy. You can directly buy online on our online store on rhinogold.com/buy. In there you will find the online store as well as the list of our resellers. So just contact them and purchase, make the purchase. We will be so happy and we will welcome you to join RhinoGold. So next week, Pedro, myself, and hopefully Enrique as well, we will be offering this webinar, Back to School, next Tuesday. It's going to be a tough one, no, Pedro?
Yes, this probably we will spend all the hour to make this one. Hope we can do it on time. But it will be a good challenge, and I'm sure it will help. It will help a lot our users. We will see lots of different tools, lots of different techniques. So I'm excited. I think it will be a very good one.
I think so, especially because within the next month, especially in US, but also in other countries, people will start receiving their signet rings. So it's a great chance to see how you can model it and do it yourself. So as always, you can register for free on rhinogold.com/webinars, and hope to see you next week. As always, it has been a pleasure to have you all here, and hope to see you next week. Thank you very much, Pedro.
Thank you very much, Xavi, and all the attendees. It's always a pleasure to have the chance to show RhinoGold.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Muted.